Hey everyone, welcome to our first midweek morning moment. I'm Jimmy McElrath. I'm the pastor of the Ridge Church, and I'm just so glad that you're here with me this morning. I love the fact that we can get connected and stay connected in this way. And this morning, I just want to share a few thoughts with you. Something that might help us during this crazy time where the new normal is not so normal after all. So what I did was I went back and reviewed a message that we did last fall that had a few points that kind of pertain to what we're experiencing today. And I just wanted to share those with you this morning. And it all centers around a guy in the Old Testament named Daniel. And Daniel's story is a pretty big deal. He's got his own book in the Bible. And he faces a unique challenge. In fact, it wasn't just him, but it was everybody in the nation at the time. They were all facing something that they weren't really prepared for. There was nothing normal about what was happening to them. Let me bring you up to speed, kind of give you a little background information before we jump into our first story in Daniel chapter 2. The book actually starts off with a 15-year-old Daniel being taken prisoner by the Babylonians to live in what is now modern-day Iraq, okay? He's going to spend the next 70 years of his life there. And at the time, the Babylonians, they were the biggest empire in the world. They had enormous power, enormous influence. And Daniel's world is turned upside down. And even though Daniel is slave to this pagan king, God blesses Daniel for his faith. And Daniel keeps his faith when Jerusalem is overthrown. He keeps his faith and doesn't give in to temptation. And because of all this and how committed Daniel stays in the middle of all this, he just keeps getting stronger and stronger. And his faith is building and building. And the crazy thing is that he keeps getting promoted in this kingdom. But the situation for Daniel, as you read through the chapters in his book, it just seems to get more chaotic as time goes on. And in one particular story, the king, in Daniel chapter 2, King Nebuchadnezzar, or King Nebuchadnezzar, for those of you that grew up watching VeggieTales, he has this dream that really freaks him out. And he wants to know what it means. So he sends for all the prophets that he has. Now, all the prophets are fake, okay? Daniel's not, but all the other prophets are. But the king thinks that they can tell him what his dream means. So all the prophets gather up and they're like, okay, king, tell us your dream. And then we'll tell you what it means. And the king is looking at them and he goes, no. I want to see how good you really are. I want you to tell me what I dreamed and then tell me what it means. And everybody's looking around going, king, that's crazy. That's impossible. Nobody can do that. And the king says, well, what good are y'all then? And if you can't tell me what it means, then I'm just going to kill all of you. And suddenly in that moment, Daniel is caught up in all of this that's just out of control. Okay? He didn't cause it. He didn't have anything to do with it. He's just in the middle of it. Oh, we're kind of in the middle of something right now that's just kind of crazy, that's threatening our way of life, and we're just caught up in it, right? I think we can learn a few things with how Daniel dealt with this. How do we deal with the impossible situations that we face in life? Daniel did a lot of things right in this moment. He really did. He didn't panic. He pushed pause. He enlisted some prayer warriors. He prayed and he expected God to help. He worshiped God in the middle of it. And then when it was all done, he pointed to God and gave him glory. Now, it's too much to cover all those points. I want to keep this time brief. So let me cover just the two first things that I talked about. How to deal with the impossible. Number one, I think Daniel teaches us, don't panic. Don't panic. And I'll add this too. Don't be afraid, which is really hard for me to do because I'm an anxious person. And honestly, I'm really surprised at how well Daniel handles all this. This situation is so bad that the king is he's so mad that he's rounding up all the prophets, Daniel included, to kill them. And Daniel seems calm in the middle of all this. Because this would essentially be like a foreign government sending an assassin to take you out. I mean, if the foreign government sent assassins to take you out, like how would you handle that? I wouldn't handle that well at all. Like I said, I'm kind of a scaredy pants at times. In fact, last summer, I remember I was mowing the grass and one of our church members saw me outside. And he stopped his truck. He ran up behind me while I was mowing. I had no idea he was there. And he yelled in my ear. And I'm not proud of the fact that I screamed really loud. It may have ruined my pants. Anyway, I'm teasing. But these guys, they sneak over to his home, not to scare him, but to kill him. And Daniel's calm. Daniel actually talks this guy down. In chapter 2, verse 14, it says this, when Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, hold on, push pause right there. Not just anybody, okay, but the commander comes to Daniel's house to kill him. Okay? When the commander of the king's guard came to kill them, Daniel handled the situation, check this out, with wisdom and discretion. Again, I don't think those are two words that you could have used to describe how I would have handled that situation. But Daniel doesn't panic. He wasn't afraid. You know, one of my favorite verses is Joshua 1:9 that says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." So let me ask you, are you afraid right now? And is your worrying get the best of you? You know, it could be at work, how things are going to be different for a little while. There's projects that have been put on hold. We've got new office hours. We're working from the home. Everything's different. It's a little scary. Maybe it's in the family and everybody's cooped up inside for so long. Maybe it's dealing with money and the fear of how to pay bills if I can't go to work. Or it could be your health and you're worried about getting too close to anyone. Now, it's good to be diligent. It's good to be prepared, of course. I've said that the past couple of times that we've been together or met online. But I do want you to notice something. When Daniel's world is turned upside down, he reminds us not to panic. And don't be afraid, because no matter what, God is with you. Remember that. He goes wherever you go. The second thing I think we can learn from Daniel is just to push pause, to take a minute. Just to take a minute when we're feeling anxious and overwhelmed. And the reason I say this is because this is something that I've had to learn through the years. I believe the biggest temptation we face in those moments of crisis is to be impulsive, right? And it's when we're impulsive that we make bad decisions. It's like being in a car wreck. And when you get out of that wreck, you're not thinking logically. You're not thinking rationally most of the time. Your emotions are driving your decisions, and sometimes that's not always a good thing. I remember when Say was in her wreck a little while back, she called me. She was terrified. I arrived on the scene, and after checking on her and seeing that she was okay, my first impulse was to grab that 25-year-old guy that had run out in front of her with a car that didn't belong to him, and he didn't have any insurance, and just share Jesus with him. Or help him meet Jesus early. I'm teasing. But sometimes we need some time to process. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Because it's more important to make the right decision than to make a fast decision. And the reason I bring this up is because this is exactly what Daniel did. In chapter 2, verse 16, he goes to the king. Listen to what it says. Daniel went at once to the king and requested more time to tell the king what the dream meant. You see, Daniel's going to give it his best shot. He's not just going to say that the king's request is impossible, that this moment is just out of God's control, like the other guys did. No, because maybe, just maybe God's got something big in store. So you know what? That kind of gets us started today. I don't want to use this devotional to be a long time together. I just wanted to have a short moment with you. I have a tendency to talk too much. I want to save worship and prayer and the rest of the points for another day. But for the rest of this week, until we meet again on Sunday, what can we learn from this? I think Daniel is a great example of how to live in a crazy time. If anybody knew how to survive and thrive, it's Daniel. And he teaches us, don't panic. Don't let the fear overwhelm you. Remember, God is in control, and we are called to practice faith over fear. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to lean into him. We're going to trust him in this time. And then the next time anxiety gets a little high for you, and it's high for all of us right now, just push pause. Take a minute. Take a deep breath. Take some time to process what's happening. Our decisions don't need to be based just on emotions right now because emotions are high. But take a minute to process, and when you do, that time gives God a chance to speak and to move and to bring the comfort that we need. Thanks for joining me this morning. I'll see you online this Sunday.